Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheryl if you are new here, and today I'm here to bring you an unhaul video. I know, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I do these pretty regularly on my channel, but I am moving in a few months and I don't want to move with a lot of books. I'm sorry, I just don't. And so I've also realized that I'm not, at least in this phase of my life, I am not a book collector, which means I only really want to keep the books that I really enjoyed reading or I'm anticipating reading. I know a lot of people read and keep every book they read, which if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I mean, one day would I love to have like just a big library full of books? Yes. Am I at that stage in my life right now? No. And that part of that is because, like I said, I'm moving, but yes. So without further ado, we're just going to get into this. No, I'm not going to be able to send these to anyone. They're just going to be donated to my local Goodwill, so please don't ask. Yeah, some of these may be controversial, so let's just get into this. So the first book I have here is Treasure Island. This is like a classic start, and this is Robert Louis Stevenson's book, but it's like a retelling, so it's like, I don't want to say it's dumbed down, but it's definitely a simplified version of it for children specifically. I had this, I don't even know where I got this, but I used it when I was in my curriculum when I was in the elementary ed program. I'm not in that program anymore. I don't have kids, so I don't really see a reason to keep this one. If you've seen my like worst books of 2017 or some of my recent videos, you'll have heard me talk about this. That is Asylum by Madeline Rue. I did not enjoy this book. I felt like they tried really hard to be Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, but failed just miserably. And yeah, I just don't want to look at this book anymore. I did not enjoy it whatsoever. So this next one, I don't know if I've actually showed you guys it before. Like, I've showed you the book, but I don't know if I've talked about unhauling it before or not. So if I have in a previous video, here it is again. And that is Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. You've heard me talk about this series before on my channel. You know, I was rereading it, trying to like revisit the world that I fell in love with in high school. Upon my reread, I realized, one, how generic it is, and two, how just unbelievably misogynistic and awful. Especially like by book 3 of like what, a 15-book series, I couldn't even read it. Like it pained me to get through that book because of how blatantly misogynistic it is. Plus the main character's a Gary Stu. He can do no wrong. Yeah, it's bad. I'm not about it. I'm not about this series, and I've been slowly unhauling them, and I think this was the last one to go, so goodbye, trash book. Now I know some of you are like fans of that series, and that's okay. It's just not for me, and the same goes for like any of these. I'm not like a big person to give disclaimers because honestly, I don't really give a shit, but like, I don't want people to think that they're bad people for enjoying that book despite the problems it has, as long as you recognize those problems. Which I believe is like the general sentiment for most things. Like, you can enjoy a problematic thing, just don't say it's perfect. And this next series is definitely problematic, and that's Anne Rice's The Vampire Armand. I think the only reason I kept on to this one, I have unhauled the series, like the first 2 books and the third one, I think. The only reason I kept on to this one because I liked the cover and it has like deckled edges, and I got it super cheap at half price. However, I'm never gonna reread this book. This series is so problematic. It is, like I said before, I cannot say that word. It fetishizes gay people, especially this book. And I read this in high school and like I enjoyed it enough, but then I was like, not enough to ever reread this series, and Anne Rice is fucking crazy. Like, I'm sorry, there's not a nicer way to say it. She's fucking nuts, and I don't need this book on my shelf anymore. This next one is just one that I just don't think I'm gonna read. It is not the genre for me. Do you gotta? I swear, every time I sit down to film, that's when my cats decide to run around. That's when my cats decide to use the litter. Why? And that book is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I know a lot of people really have loved this book, like not necessarily on BookTube, but just as a whole. This is one of those books that like everyone was reading. It's apparently won, I know, that's not awards. I thought it was awards. They're just sweepstakes and need to read Spotlight Author. However, I just have no interest in picking this up. This might be the only one in this stack, I think, that I'd be willing to keep if you guys think it's really worth it, but I have so many other books to get to that like are a priority, and yeah, no real interest. Like I said, if you think it's like that good that I need to keep it and read it, let me know, but otherwise, it's gotta go. So this next book is one that, like, it pains me to unhaul, but at the same time, like, when I explain why, you'll understand. And that's The Martian by Andy Weir. First off, this was a really awkward size paperback, but second, I enjoyed this book. But it was on my, like, currently reading shelf on Goodreads forever because I read up until the last 50 pages and just had literally no interest in picking it up. So technically, is that a DNF? I mean, I know how it ends. I watched the movie. I read all but the last 50 pages, but I don't even think you can pay me to read the last 50 pages. I'm just not that interested, which is crazy because I enjoyed this book as I read it, but I hit a reading slump and just put this book down, never had a desire to pick it back up, and I think that's part of the problem. And then another reason is that I just don't know, and I have no desire to pick up his next book or his most recent one, Artemis. I've heard really bad things about it, so no need to keep it. I'm not going to read the last 50 pages. It's just taking up space on my shelf. So this next one is actually an entire trilogy and probably the most controversial one on this list, and that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. And I've gone back and forth through basically all of my unhauls videos about, should I unhaul this book? Do I want to keep this, or this series? Do I want to keep this series? I don't know. And it's just, I think it's time. I think it's time to finally unhaul them. The nice thing is, this is one of those series that, because it got so big, and if I want to rebuy them, it's not going to be difficult to find them at Goodwill. I swear to God, every time you go, there's like 2 copies of each. But these were fun when I read them the first time, but I'm not really big into dystopian, and they didn't have the impact on me that a lot of people had, and I never finished Mockingjay. You can even see my bookmark in it, where I started reading it like, oh god, probably 3-4 years after I read the first 2, didn't know what the fuck was going on, and I realized that I just don't have the desire to reread these 2 in order to read this one. And so maybe one day I'll rebuy them if I'm like, oh shit, I need to revisit the series. But like with most of these books that I am unhauling that I haven't read yet, I've got so many other books and so many other series that are so much more interesting and so much more pressing that these, I think, just have to go. They'll find a new home, I'm sure, or they'll just live with all the other copies at Goodwill. So the only reason I'm unhauling this next book is because when you watch my haul video, which, you know, unhauling and then hauling books, that's going to go up after this one, you will see that I have actually purchased a new edition of this book that I like so much better, and that's Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is like an old mass market, oh, got a picture of Gary Oldman as Dracula apparently in it. This is a mass market, no real need to keep it. I like the other edition so much better. So when I first started my channel, I used the editing software, video editing software that came with Windows, because your girl doesn't have a Mac because I ain't rich, and that did not allow you to put images up, which sucked. It allowed you to put text up, but not images, so I would keep books that I wanted to talk about in tag videos that I hated, and now my editing software allows me to put images up, so there's really no need to keep these books. By this point, it's just petty to keep them, and I'm not about it. And the first one of those is Diary of a Haunting by M. Verano. This book was really awful. Like, the first, like, quarter of it, like, no, I'd say probably 3/4 of it, I was like, okay, this is like an average book. Like, the author clearly doesn't really know much about teen girls, because it's like the most stereotypical teen girl ever, but it wasn't terrible. And then the ending happened, and Jesus Christ, oh my god, it was the worst fucking ending I've ever read, I think. And the author of this book is a character in the book. It was a hot mess. It did not come together the way you would have expected. And while the cover of it is pretty neat, because this entire thing slides up, and it's like, yeah, there's just no reason to keep it. Now, like I said, I can, especially now that I can pop up an image of this book anytime I want to talk about how terrible it is. Don't need to see it anymore. It just honestly makes me angry to look at, so there's no point in keeping it. This next one is also one I'm unhauling because I didn't like it whatsoever, and same reason as the previous one, and that's The Selection by Kira Cass. Ugh. I hate this book. I think I might have given it a 3 stars, but I have a really bad habit of judging and rating a book really quickly and then reflecting on it and realizing it's a piece of trash. Or I just didn't enjoy it quite as much as I thought. And the problem with that is I tend to review books and then put up the review and then realize after, like with Akawar, where I'm always like, oh, I loved it. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, actually. It usually happens after I read or see other people's reviews where they talk about it a little more in depth and I really think about the book and I'm like, oh, I didn't enjoy that as much. Same thing goes with this. I actually read the second one, The Elites, and hated it right off the bat. So, it's no surprise if you've been on my channel that I'm unhauling this, probably. I really hate America. She's one of my least favorite main characters ever. And so it's time to go. Don't like this book. I only kept this copy because of holding it up in videos, but now I don't need to, so I don't have to see it anymore. I'm never gonna finish the original trilogy. I am definitely never gonna start the little companion thing with following her kid. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. This next one is one that, like, I bought it because of the hype, and I'm like, this is not a genre I like. It's not a genre I ever really pick up, and that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Also, I'm pretty sure, did Stieg Larsson die, or did Stieg Larsson stop writing the series, and then someone, like, ghost wrote the rest of it, I think? And I really don't like when that happens, because they're very rarely ever as good. There are some exceptions, like with Brandon Sanderson picking up, was it the Wheel of Time series at the end? I haven't read it, but like I like Brandon Sanderson's writing. I'm sure it's good. But I've read books where that's happened before, and or series, like one of my favorite series when I was younger was the Cat Who series by, I don't really remember, but it was like the cat who had 30 whiskers, the cat who saw bloody footprints, and like those little like cozy mystery type things. Well, I read like one of the last ones because you didn't have to read them in order, and I read one of the last ones and found out after that this author I think had passed, and someone in the family picked up the series and wrote, but it was just god awful. It was terrible. So that's put a sour taste in my mouth. Now, if that's not actually true about the series, then I'm just talking out of my ass, but I'm pretty sure I heard something along those lines. Also, I don't have an interest in this series. I don't have an interest in this type of book. They just don't interest me. They just don't. And so I have no desire to pick up this book. It's been on my shelf forever. I only got it for like 50 cents, so I'm not really out that much money, but no desire to keep this. So if you just watched my, January wrap up? What month are we in? Yeah, I think January wrap up. You actually might be kind of surprised to see this next one, because I talked about this one not highly, but just as like, it was good. It was like 3 stars. And that's gonna be Kat Cora's Cooking as Fast as I Can. I did enjoy this book. It was like a pretty solid 3.5 stars. Just once again, I did not in a place in my life where I want to keep average books. I'm really trying to like narrow my bookshelves down and only keep books that are like a 4 stars or higher that I genuinely enjoyed. This was not one of them. I only got it for like 25 cents at a library, which is like so shiny, but yeah, just no real desire to keep it. I can pass this story on, and maybe someone else who is also interested in cooking in like the chef world can pick it up and enjoy it more than I did. And this final book, it's an end of an era. Like, I don't know if that's a proper phrase, but we've come full circle. This book was, if you were here from the beginning of my channel, which I'm sorry you had to watch those videos, they're rough, is the first book I reviewed. It was my first video because my dumb ass was like, let's just hop in with a book review. You didn't ever do book reviews on Goodreads or really anything before. I had a blog for like a hot minute where I did some book reviews, but this one was the first video I did. It's not privated, so you're welcome to watch it if you'd like to. I just don't recommend it. The lighting, the quality, I talk really fast, which I do naturally, but like you can tell I'm really nervous. And my thoughts are not reflected in that video anymore. And basically, this book is, I don't want to say it's the most divisive on BookTube, but I would say it's one of the most divisive on BookTube because people either fucking hate it or absolutely love it. Very few people are middle of the road. And I'm gonna stop keeping you in suspense, and I'm gonna talk about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I had been like toying with unhauling this because In my initial review, I think I gave it like a 4 stars. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And upon reflection and upon watching videos, which I will leave a video link down below from Cece's channel where she goes into in extreme depth about why this book is not good, and it really opened my eyes to aspects of it which I had not read the Harry Potter series in forever, so I was only familiar with like the highlights of the series that I could remember. And yeah, basically, it's so dusty too. Basically, this book is like really mediocre fan fiction, and it is super queerbaity. It is super cringy at times. It doesn't feel like Harry Potter. And honestly, every time I look at it next to my Harry Potter books, I'm just like, you don't belong. So I'm going to clear off that space and continue collecting other editions of Harry Potter that I enjoy so much more. I've heard the play is better than the book. Screenwrite thing. I don't know if I'll ever see the play because first off it's expensive, but second this put such a, like, I think about it now and there's such a sour taste in my mouth. Not when I first read it, but like I think about it now and I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. Like, even when I first read it, there were times that I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like with the trolley witch. Yeah, the characterization and stuff was off, so I'm not going to talk about this one anymore. You guys form your own opinions if you haven't read it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend reading it if you love the Harry Potter series, but form your own opinions. As of now, I just don't want to see it on my shelf anymore. I don't think it belongs next to my beautiful Harry Potter books, so it's time for this one to finally go. Can't believe that I'm unhauling the first book I ever talked about on my channel explicitly. Like, yeah, first video of my channel. That book is now finally leaving. Anyways, that is my most recent unhaul video. Like I said, I'm probably going to be unhauling more books coming up soon. I'm going to ask my husband to go through the shelves with me and get rid of any books that he also doesn't want, because I feel a little, not odd, but I don't want to unhaul books that he really likes, and I was like, why the fuck did you do that? So I don't know when the next one of these will be, but I will pop my unhaul playlist down below if you just can't get enough of unhauls. Your girl has gotten rid of a lot of books recently. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Why did I do this? Bye.